Good. All right. Welcome back, Flipsiders, to another episode where we get into some of the various lessons and philosophies and things that we've talked about over the years that we just thought were really relevant to encourage you guys all in your walk with God. So today's topic is called Drop Your Rock. This is a favorite one. Those of you that are listening that maybe were part of some of the stuff in the past will remember this one. And this is what's really powerful about this is that this story from the life of Christ really kind of gets into some very important application truths that I think a lot of people struggle to remember. So I'm going to turn this over to Andy now so he can tell us a little bit more about what it means to drop your rock.
Listen, Dave, we've seen the power of this, of this topic. We've seen people who have bought into this and what can happen, like if we decide, because really it's the crux of Christianity. It makes everything else start to move. When we can just really start looking, at the kingdom of heaven in this type of perspective. But the quick story in John chapter 8 is that a woman is caught in adultery, which is amazing because in order to be caught in adultery, there needs to be two people, right? And so I don't know where the guy is in this story. He somehow gets off scot-free, but the Old Testament's really clear. Both people need to be stoned, right? And so the Pharisees, the teachers of the law, decided to bring this woman. Now you can do the imagery there. Like they caught her in the act of adultery. So you can imagine how they're dragging her, right? And they bring her to Jesus, who's in the midst of talking to a group of people. So there's a bunch of people here, right? And it's amazing because the whole idea of the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the teachers of the law in this moment is to trap Jesus. This is not about this woman at all. And I tell you right there is principle applicational moment number one. Too often we're dragging people places and it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with us. We're either trying to feel better about ourselves. We're trying to destroy somebody, but it doesn't have to do. We're not concerned with their sin and making them right with God. We're concerned about destroying them, right? Too often we are more concerned about destroying somebody over their sin than getting them back into relationship with God. But they goof up here and they accidentally bring this woman to the only place in the entire universe that matters, and that's the feet of Jesus, right? This woman was dead. The law was clear. They had a right to stone her. She was completely caught and completely dead to rights, right? She deserved to die. There's no question about that. We're not going to even argue about that, right? So this wasn't about, maybe it wasn't as bad as she thought that. But they drag her, they drop her in front of Jesus, and they trap Jesus. They say to him, like, listen, this is what it says. The law says that she needs to be stoned, right? What do you say? So I love it. Jesus wrote the law, by the way. So they're asking him about his law, and they have no idea what they're doing, right? But here's how gracious, this is why I'm so animated about this story. God doesn't just love this woman, right? Jesus doesn't just love this woman. Jesus loves these people who are setting her up. He doesn't answer. But he gives them a chance to drop the whole matter and to just walk away and be like, you know what, maybe this was a bad idea. Like he gave them an opportunity. God does, sometimes we're railing to God about somebody. We're just destroying somebody. We got them dead to rights and we're going to make them pay. And God says, Dave, Andy, I'm not going to answer you for your benefit. Right? Like I'm just gonna work through, do your little fit, and then go off, like do life. But nope, these guys are dumb and they keep pressing God about his laws. And they ask him again, right? They press, and so Jesus, again, he says to them, in order for this to be a test, he said, okay, let's make this simple. You who are without sin, you throw the first stone. Now again, the Old Testament law said the people who caught her in adultery had to throw the first stones. Right? Anytime somebody was stoned in the Bible, the people who were accusing had to throw the first stone. Right? And so Jesus said, okay, listen, here's the deal. Go ahead, stone her. right? She deserves it. You go ahead, you stone her. Just let's make this very clear. You who are without sin, you throw the first stone. And he bends down into the sand, Dave, which is awesome, because this is where all of the scholars focus their attention on is, what did he write?
The big mystery.
Right, he starts writing stuff, and everybody wants to know what he writes. What in the world does it matter what he wrote? What he wrote? It can't possibly matter, because we see the rest of the story. We see the effect that it had. Right, the effect that it had was this: one by one, right, dealing with Jesus one by one, they all drop their rock. And to me, when I do this object lesson and I make people drop rocks, I have the people who are up in the front, I have people close their eyes, because there is no greater sound than the dropping of rocks. When you know you deserve stoning, man, is it an amazing thing when you're sitting there and you're bracing yourself for the attack that is coming, right? The response that's coming. To have somebody drop their rock is an amazing, amazing gift, right? To get to hear that sound of thud when you know they have a right. When your wife, when your husband, when your kids, when your friends, when they have you dead to right, that's what's important. And so we look at the whole thing and we say there's a need for you and I to do that for other people, right? Mm-hmm. There's a need for you and I to look at things through God's perspective, right? That God does that for us. God looks at you and I and he says, I got a rock for you, Dave. The way that you forgive is the way that you're going to be forgiven, right? And it ends up with Jesus looking at this woman, which is fantastic. And he says, where are your accusers? And she says, they're gone. And he says, well, then neither do I accuse you, right? Go and sin no more. He doesn't let her off the hook. This isn't a free sin thing. She just got her life back. She got a second chance at life. And all Jesus says to her is, quit sinning. Not quit sinning and go to a 21-step rehab program. Not quit sinning and go and give money here or go do that. But just quit sinning. Like that's what we should be for. So I would wrap this up and listen to you and your take, because you've heard this a whole bunch of times. I would say that the deal is, let's drag people to Jesus, but not because we're wanting to destroy them and stone them, but because people need to be to Jesus. Let's drop our rock, the rights that we have, right, to destroy other people, right, to make them feel our anger. Let's drop that right, because we also know that God has that ability for us. He's going to forgive us the way that we forgive. But at the end of all of this, let's not worry about somebody got the lesson. Let's not worry if they got punished enough or disciplined enough. Or let's just simply say to them, stop sinning.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think something that always stands out to me is that when it says in verse 9, this is after when Jesus says, if any one of you is without sin, let him be first to throw a stone at her. And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Then in verse 9, this has always stuck out to me. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. So I think it's ironic that it's like, it doesn't say like, it clearly specifies the older ones left first. And this gets back to the generational component of forgiveness. Like a lot of young Christians need to see this in action. Older Christians kind of stepping up, people that have lived life longer, who have have done more things that need forgiveness, right? Have had more time to make those mistakes and to come back from them. It's very important that it's modeled, that we see older, wiser Christians that are modeling for younger Christians what it means to forgive, what it means to like drop all the things you think you have a right to throw at someone else. And that of course takes us full circle back to Jesus, who said, on the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus had the biggest rock ever that he could have thrown at the world. And countless times in his ministry, he's being tempted to just forget it, to go back into heaven. Even in Gethsemane, Jesus prays, Father, take this cup from me, but not my will be done, but your will be done, right? If there's any other way for us to do this, to forgive humanity's sin, to atone and redeem humanity. But then Christ goes to the cross, and in that moment, right, that substitutionary atonement, he basically forgives. He covers our sin when we're the ones that deserved to essentially die. He died in our place. So that always stands out to me, because then he says, neither do I condemn you, right? All of us without Christ stand condemned, right? But with Christ, we stand redeemed. And I think that gets back to what Andy said about this being the crux, the core of the gospel message. So,
well, it's about community, Dave. Like, again, when I realize that I have no right to condemn anybody, then I leave that up to God. The problem is I don't want to leave that up to God all the time. The problem is I want people to get what I think they deserve sometimes, right? And true Christianity is about leaving people at the feet of Jesus, right where they need to be. Right? Not just the people that I love. It's easy to forget and to forgive and to let people off the hook with the people that we really love. It's hard, right? To forgive your enemy. It's hard to do that whole treat people the way you want to be treated, right? But again, when you don't do that, then that begins the root of bitterness and all of those things that just start to come from it. And so this is the crux, because it's how you become successful at doing what God has called you to do and loving everybody.
Yeah. So with that said, take some time this week, think about what rocks you're holding, and make a conscious effort, prayerful effort, to actually drop that rock instead of throwing it. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you next time.